You're listening to Beat Autoimmune and Thrive, the podcast all about reversing and preventing autoimmune conditions so you can live your most vibrant life as soon as possible. We talk about autoimmune root causes, actionable solutions, and inspirational healing stories. I'm Palmer Kippola, and I used to have MS. Today, I'm an author, a speaker, a functional medicine certified health coach, a pickleball player, and nature lover who's helped thousands of people reclaim their health and their best lives. Let's dive into this episode. I am super excited to be here with Courtney Contos, a chef, a certified functional medicine health coach, and a woman who had her own autoimmune healing journey in which she has overcome Hashimoto's thyroiditis and rheumatoid arthritis. I am so delighted to be with you, Courtney. Thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, I really appreciate this holding space here with you and with your listeners and to share my story and give hope. It's just truly awesome. And thank you so much for your time.
Oh, absolutely. This is just my privilege, is to amplify the good news. I mean, there are so many people who have beat these autoimmune conditions, but they haven't shared their story. So my intention is to just amplify the good news and provide hope, because I think so many people need it. And as such, let's just dive right in, because usually with an autoimmune condition, we have to go back to childhood. And I'd love to just learn, where did you grow up and what was your childhood like?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's, I remember one time first discovering how long it takes once you've been diagnosed with an autoimmune condition. I think it was 8 to 10 years you could kind of subtract from there. And maybe that was your trigger event. And so I can share that because I remember the first time I discovered that and then did the math and where was I? And oh my gosh, and the next thing you know, you're in tears that this is all tied together. But my childhood was part glamorous with a beautiful French restaurant that my family owned that was pretty famous in downtown Chicago. And then it was also extremely dysfunctional with 2 alcoholic parents. One just, like really bad, which was my mom and who I lived with. And it was difficult, really, really difficult. Always feeling like, what's this day going to be like, and kind of hiding and prepared for anything. And I remember running away and actually bouncing from family to family and just like an enormous amount of stress because about every 2 days there was like a chronic event in our house.
It must have been so hard. And yet I know personally, and for a lot of people listening, this is not unfamiliar territory. In fact, now we know these adverse childhood experiences, which is not necessarily the big T trauma with a capital T, but these little traumas that we experience in childhood that actually have the effect of keeping our stress response, our stress reaction always on, and scanning that environment for safety is often the setup for autoimmunity, even decades later. So you're right that there's often some trigger that happens 8 to 12 years, but sometimes the seeds for autoimmunity are started much, much, much younger. So that must have been hard to grow up in a situation like that. Did you find that you adapted with the way your personality developed? Did you develop any coping skills to keep yourself sane during that time?
Well, I definitely, bounced from, okay, today's going to be a good day and you could feel it in the house or or if yesterday was a really bad day, today was going to be a good day, when that's sometimes how alcoholics go. And so I didn't have, I don't think I had a lot of coping skills. Hiding was probably, like just pretending I'm doing something, even though I'm not, like, leave me alone kind of a thing. And then the event that I was talking about a moment ago, that was like the big, maybe boom of stress altogether, was when my father passed away when I was 18. And that was just like an emotional, like I couldn't even, control like the amount of grief I had. And then to have like still living in dysfunction. So there's just been that pattern of dysfunction for a long time. And And recently I've been wondering, because with rheumatoid arthritis, which is what I really struggled with for so long, that it almost reflected the amount of challenges and struggles that I had when I was growing up. Like, just, some days a good day, and then all of a sudden it's like, a really bad day. And so it was this roller coaster, and life was really difficult for a long time. And I feel like maybe a year or 2 years ago was the first time that I feel really stable, and like life isn't as hard as it's unfortunate. It was really difficult for a long time, but now in my mid 40s, I feel that I'm at a place of peace inside and health wise.
It's just so, so beautiful how we can look back and connect the dots, right? Because we have this vantage point now where we can see things, where it's little wonder that the amount of stress that we may have endured as a child, not our fault, right? Certainly.
Oh, yeah.
And then we just proceed with our life, and whatever coping mechanisms we employ, we just do the best we can until one day something happens. So talk to us about when you first started noticing symptoms. What happened then?
Well, let's see. I was a chef instructor at a beautiful cooking school in Chicago, and my knee like blew up, and it was just like all of a sudden I just had a knee injury with not much of an injury. I had slipped, and but it just reacted in a way that it really shouldn't have. And that's where I just thought, I could tell that, well, now looking back, that was a lot of inflammation, and just in crazy amounts of inflammation. And then I remember another time, this was still before I was diagnosed, where it was summertime, and my toe, like just one toe, it sounds so boring and simple now, like really your toe hurt, but my toe hurts so bad that the sheet, just the light little sheet, couldn't even be on it. And then that's what led me to starting to play detective, like why I didn't injure it, what's going on. And then it led to my primary care doing some of those lab tests to discover the autoimmune conditions. And it still was pretty mild then, until I had a severe car accident where an oil tanker hit me head on. And I thought that the car was going to explode, because it was like an oil tanker, and it's jackknifing on black ice coming at me. And after that accident, it was like I don't like to really label it too much, because I know rheumatoid arthritis doesn't exist essentially, and we can talk about that. But basically, my body just exploded with inflammation after that. And that's when my hands started, to really get activated, and my right foot. So, yeah.
Oh, my goodness. It's just so much compassion. And thinking about that, it must have been terrifying as I'm thinking about you being in that car. And now, I mean, this is like inflammation becoming widespread.
Yeah.
So do you go at this point to specialists to see what you can do to deal with the rheumatoid arthritis?
Sure. And at the time when my primary care and I were seated together, and she's sharing with me, okay, you have this, and it's called rheumatoid arthritis. I had never heard of it. And, this was long before there were advertisements every 5 minutes on TV, because now it is a huge problem. And luckily, you and I can share with people how to get out of that situation. But at the time, I just had never heard of this. I know I said, am I dying? Like, can I get married? What does this mean? I had no idea. And that did lead me to seeing the rheumatologist. And that was drug after drug after drug. And my whole life have been somebody that's very into health and into clean living. I'm the weird one that has the strange soap since I was 16, like has the weird stuff, not the mainstream shampoo and conditioner. I've always kind of been into healthier products that I use on my body, and that things also that I eat, right? Bee pollen and wheatgrass. I was into that at 16. So now I have this doctor saying the only way you're going to get better is if you take these drugs. And I think I took them, in one of them was hydrochloroquine. Is that how you say it? Hydrochloroquine?
I think so.
And that drug, the side effect was you could go blind, but like that was such a small chance, they would say, but still, like, how scary, you know, and every time you went there, they'd say, well, how are your eyes? And you need to go to the, you know, it was just nuts. So I remember I had actually a strange kind of fun, unique burn ceremony where I just burned the drugs. I'm like, I need to end this. I don't want to take them. And we had a bonfire and we burned that particular drug. However, my symptoms were not getting better as much as I had tried my own, strategies, which I didn't really have any framework at the time. And this is like the internet was around, but it wasn't like it is today. And so I was kind of like lost, just reading books and, trying little things. But I ended up having to go on the biologic drugs, or having to go, I don't know if it's having to go, but chose to take those drugs. And that was an injection once a week. And also I was injecting methotrexate, which is a drug for chemotherapy.
Wow. Wow. Powerful, powerful drugs. And at the time, of course, we just put our trust and our faith in specialists who know better than we do. Mm-hmm. So I love that you have this intuition and this foundation of being healthy. And, we would have made good friends growing up. You could find me in health food stores, and I too, was just digging into the wheatgrass and tried vegetarian, tried vegan, just thought that those were all the healthy solutions. And just, we try because that's what we do. We experiment and we're looking for solutions. And at the time, I too, with the MS, didn't have the roadmap, the people that had already healed. So we do the best we can. So you're on these medications, but you're getting worse. And at this time, if I'm not mistaken, you've decided, I'm going to open my own store. And yet you were in pain. So tell us about that.
Well, my rheumatoid, so I was at the time of being diagnosed, I was in Vermont. I was running a culinary institute and I was their top chef. And I had this beautiful opportunity at this resort. And it was an amazing job. I had a lot of fun doing it. And I was in so much pain that I had to stop working there. And I remember at the time, my boyfriend carrying me out as I shared with my boss that I couldn't tolerate the pain of being on my feet anymore. And so I got carried to the car. And that's when really the journey of being carried many, many, many places for many years started. And so I thought, well, I have to do something. I need a purpose. I knew that I needed a purpose. So I opened a cooking school and kitchen store in a tiny little town in Vermont, which became a really big success. But I thought by having my own business, I could sit down whenever I wanted. If I had to teach seated, or if I had to cancel an event or show up late, there was so much flexibility, and that maybe I could still have a career and still have some kind of purpose. I thought I don't even need to make any money. I just need to have a place to go, because I'm going to go nuts like if I don't have something going on. So I created this beautiful kitchen store and cooking school. And I remember my customers saying, "Oh, what's wrong with you?" Because I would hobble around, and some days I couldn't walk at all. And, I would just brush it off. I was most certainly embarrassed. And there was a lot of shame, because I thought, oh, if they know that I have rheumatoid arthritis and I can barely walk, like, am I going to be a good, instructor? Am I a good business owner? Like, I just felt like I wasn't qualified or something, that they would look down upon me, which, was ridiculous. That's clearly not true. But so I would brush it off. I would never share my pain. I would say, just like, whatever. I would literally brush it off. And so I did that for 6, almost 7 years. I made the cover of Food and Wine magazine, best cooking school in the world by Food and Wine magazine. Just had a lot of fun there. And it was just a sweet place where I could work in pain with my condition. So as soon as my cooking class would end, if I wasn't already seated, I would sit down, and my staff knew, clean everything up and and I just couldn't walk, and I wouldn't be able to walk until the next day or the next event. I would go home. I would just go right in the shower, always seated. I didn't stand taking a shower for years and years and years. Always, first thing you do is like get in the shower and like sit down. And then I'd have to get lifted out by my husband, who now is my husband. And that was, that was my life. I would just have this business so that I had a purpose, but then outside of it, it was hard to do much. So social life and, some friends, like you lose friends because they don't understand, why are you canceling again? Why can't you make it? And then the rheumatoid arthritis got so bad that I was told by my rheumatologist that I'll be in a wheelchair for the rest of my life if I don't take the drugs, because I had, I guess, an on and off relationship with the drugs sometimes, right? Sometimes you just like would just say, I can't do it anymore. There has to be another way. And you try alternative treatments and then they don't work. So I had a lot of hope in my rheumatologist, I guess, at the time in the early years, but then they just completely, failed me.
Oh, there's so much richness in there. I mean, the fact that you had this mindset to open your own restaurant, your own cooking school and store, while you're in pain. I mean, it just speaks so much about you and your resilience and your determination to have a purpose. It is, it's well understood. And actually there's science around this, that people who have a purpose and meaning in their lives actually do fare much better when it comes to cancer and other conditions, let's say, right? Because it's kind of like the phrase, I'm going to massacre his name, Nietzsche, who said, the philosopher, he who has a why can withstand any how, which really means if we live into our purpose, we can get through whatever is going on today. And I think, we certainly have examples of that, of people who survived the Holocaust and wonderful works that have come out of that. But for you to develop that mindset and decide, I'm just going to move on with my life. I know I need a purpose. I'm just going to keep going. I think that says so much about you, and developing that resilience is huge, and anybody can. And I've been studying resilience because I thought it was confined to the few who believed they could do anything and did it. But actually, it's a set of skills that we can develop over time. Yeah. So I just want to shout out that resilience factor, which I think is huge. And it carries us through so many of these tough or turbulent or difficult times. And so here you are at the very worst with your boyfriend, now husband, giving you piggybacks or carrying you out of your own events, right? And you get to a point where tell me, what was the bottom? What was the rock bottom there?
Well, it got to the point where I couldn't walk anywhere really at all, like without crazy amounts of pain. And I would, just going to the bathroom in the middle of the night, I would crawl, I would use the walls. And that, that's really when the doctors just kept emphasizing more drugs, different drugs. And it was awful. And I just knew that I had to change my life. So I was going to close the school or, hand it off to my staff to run, or like something had to change. And like big change was on the horizon. And we were about to spend some time in Mexico to investigate some opportunities there where my husband could work and I could just, be in a warm environment and, maybe not have to work as hard or not have to like stand at all and just figure it out, but just enter a new environment. And that's really when things started to shift for me, when the right people were coming into my life that were like my hope angels. But I just love this. And so this is as with any hero's journey, right? There is a turning point. Mm-hmm. So what happened to usher in the right people? Well, and I guess I forgot this part. Before, I think during the hardest point too, my hands started to, both my wrists fused together. And so I decided not to have surgery because it just sounded crazy. And I just wore braces for a summer and kind of like just sucked up the pain. And so both my wrists auto fused. And I have a little bit of movement, but they don't move any more than this. But, that seems to have been okay. But then the inflammation from this fusion, this natural fusion or whatever, just kept bubbling up and hardening on my tendons. So I had 2, what I would consider now unnecessary surgeries in the exact same location, where they would just slice my hand open, the top of my hand, and scrape my tendons clean of like a hard kind of fluid that had built up on there, because they said my tendons will snap otherwise, and then I would lose function of my fingers. So I had the same surgery. I guess it was like between 8 months apart. Yeah.
Okay. So
And
now you had surgery. Did you shut the shop at this time, your store?
No, I was still open. I remember I taught a Thanksgiving intensive class, which was still one of my favorite classes ever. And my arm was in a sling, of course, is my right arm. And I had my husband there, who was also a chef, and he helped. And we taught the class, and the show went on. It was just like insanity, like looking back, like, holy smokes, just so much suffering to put on a show, to also have purpose, to try to find joy and cultivate joy, because that was fun for me. It just was a ton of, so much work and then the foot on top of it was in so much pain. So there is a chef named Seamus Mullen, and he wrote a beautiful book called Real Food Heals. And I had, for, years, 15 years, I'd always read the food section in one of the newspapers from New York. And I remember a story about this chef heals rheumatoid arthritis and food. I'm just like, I cannot even believe this story exists, right? I'm like, I have to talk to this man. And so for a long time, I was reaching out to him via like how anybody would try to find someone. No luck. Until my spice therapist, we call them the spice therapist, Lior, who owns La Boite Spice Company in New York, wonderful man, came up to do an event and said, oh, you're limping. Why are you limping? And then we were out having a drink after the event. And I said, oh, rheumatoid arthritis. And he said, oh, I had a friend. And like right there, I knew who his friend was going to be. And I feel like in that moment, at that time, my whole life changed. And within 48 hours, I was on the phone with Seamus, and he shared his story and gave me a ton of direction and guidance. And we texted for almost a year straight, just, as support. Like it was just amazing. And then I met him a couple times. He came to the cooking school. So he basically shared with me, some things that I could start doing. And then at the same time, I'd shared something on Facebook, I don't even know what it was, but it triggered my best friend from third grade, Dr. Caroline Shear, to say, hey, I didn't know you were suffering so much. I think I can help you. So she's messaging me now, and I've got Seamus, here in my pocket, on my side as my little hope angel. And then my doctor, Dr. Caroline Shear, and I have this huge call. And now I have like double hope, right? I've got her and I've got Seamus, and they're both saying, you can resolve this. We are going to resolve this. This is possible.
I have to interject and ask, what kind of doctor is your friend?
So she's an MD and a functional medicine doctor.
There you go. You go. That is so brilliant. You have now these bookends, these angels on opposite coasts, actually, right?
Yes.
That are there to provide this level of support. And so did you just embrace your friend and start working with her?
I did. The first moment, that first call, I'll never forget where I was seated. The emotions I was feeling of this could be it, because clearly, as I'm sure, you also had tried, I had this suffering for 12 years. I had tried many things up until this point, enough to be discouraged over and over and over and over and over. From bee sting therapy. One time I went to an apiary and I had had bees, like I think 10 bee stings at one time in my hand to help with the pain, because I read a book on bee sting therapy and arthritis. The list was long of things I had tried, clean water, just no framework, but a huge amount of things. I actually made a list of them because it was so many things. So now I have someone else saying you can do this, but her story matches Seamus's story. So it was like aligned, it was, this is it. This is the moment. And one of the first things we did was order a stool test. And she said, no one's ever done that. And no one's ever done that before. Why would they do that? I have a joint pain. And then it just continued, and I could not stop learning about this. It became my full-time job, really. I ended up closing the school and dove right into learning and understanding everything that she's sharing with me to do, why we're ordering these specific labs, what Seamus had said. And I'm just like, I'm addicted to now learning about how I can heal my body that has gotten out of balance and ditch the labels that were put on me, because they don't really exist. They are just labels that somebody created. But the initial problem is you have a body that's gone out of balance, and there's probably up to five reasons that it has gone out of balance, and they align pretty much with your reasons as well. I think, do you call it fights?
I do. It's the food, the infections, the gut health, the hormone balance, toxins, and stress. It seems it's broad. And under stress, I include a lot of things like lack of movement and sleep go in there, but it's a catch-all for all the things that are stressing our bodies out. And as you know, the stress is mental, emotional, physical, chemical, spiritual. It's all of that, right? Is the stress piece. And you had enough. I talk about filling the toxin bucket, and as we grow up, things fill the bucket, right? You've got the chronic stress, the conflict at home, the alcoholic parents, the hiding, the shame, these things fill the bucket, right? And where does food fit into your trigger categories? Because that's usually a pretty big component, is these food sensitivities we develop over time.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And, the five stressors that Dr. Scheer really took a deep dive in, they match yours. And it's the microbes, toxins, allergens, stressors, which is air, water, light, sound, food, and then emotional stressors and allergens, toxins, microbes. I don't think if I said microbes.
Perfect.
So
you got them all.
That's kind of how someone out there today can start to play detective and figure it out. And so food has almost two categories. One was the food sensitivity test, and I had done those before. But the one that we use and that I use with my clients is, I feel like the Rolls Royce. It's very specific. It's not it's not meant to be this fun, colorful report that you can, have and deal with forever. It is just bold, clear, specific, gets to the point. And I had 3 food sensitivities on the high markers where I was going to avoid those for 6 months, that I was eating every single day, every day. And that was, canola oil. Now, clearly I wouldn't touch that, whether I had a food sensitivity or not, being an inflammatory industrial oil. But that was up there. Lemons, honey, I'm Greek, so I loved all those things. So not only was I hurting myself when I thought I was nourishing myself, but then my doctor and I took a deep dive into the Krebs cycle to figure out my very specific macronutrient profile based on advanced functional medicine lab testing, to figure out how I should be nourishing myself based on how much fats, proteins, and carbohydrates. And at the time when I first started out, I was like, I'm high fat, keto, kind of no carb. And actually that wasn't what my body wanted. It wanted some healthier carbs. So she really guided me to figure out how to nourish myself properly. So the nourish piece is a big,
That's huge. That's huge. I can't let you get away from sharing the name of the food sensitivity panel. Since you called it the Rolls Royce, I know people are going to want to know what you used.
Absolutely. And it's the LRA ELISA food test.
ACT.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it is a great one. I write about it in my book. And what I like about it so much is that it actually the lymphocyte response assay. That's what LRA stands for, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually testing your white blood cells and how they react to certain foods. And this shows you directly how your immune system is becoming burdened, right? You don't want to be fighting your foods.
Right.
You want to be like, these are the building blocks of our bodies. So when you're eating foods that are not a match for your immune system, we have to stop overburdening our immune system. So my philosophy of healing is all about removing things out of that toxin bucket, and all of ours are going to be slightly different. I mean, they're going to follow some similar categories like you beautifully shared, and like fights. I mean, they're similar because it just makes sense, right? We are overburdened with eating the wrong foods, harming our guts.
Yeah.
What happens as a result of that? Our hormones become imbalanced. And then what? It's like this downward spiral that we end up on because of all of these environmental factors over time. So then healing, from a logical perspective, we find the things that are causing harm, that are overburdening our immune systems. And how empowering is it to find the data, right? And start removing those things. So talk about that.
Well, I still, to this day, I do labs every 8 months, like advanced labs. And I get so excited for the first time, see labs, see the results, feel in control to a certain degree. The rheumatologist would tell me, we never, ever need to run your rheumatoid factor markers or your autoimmune markers or your CRP or any of these ANA markers ever again, because they will never change. And that is absolutely not true. All my rheumatoid factor markers don't exist anymore. It doesn't even it's not even there. Everything went back to normal. So it's so doing labs that actually show you evidence of a body out of balance, and then you're working with now someone who's sharing how to put that body back into balance, is the greatest thing that has ever happened. It is so empowering. And, you end up doing all the work really at home, right? It's you eating, it's you getting a good night's sleep, it's you moving, it's you changing your light bulbs, fixing your water. But when you can start to make these tiny decisions and hammer it away at it, you create this pathway for your body to heal, to have an amazing, triumphant journey. And so these labs, yes, you may have to pay out of pocket, but we are absolutely in a time where we need to trade money for wisdom when it comes to our health. And that's where we're at. But these advanced labs show nutritional deficiencies, which is one of the reasons the body goes out of balance. And then now you have food sensitivities, and you can, take all of this information. So the first time I had my labs done, my doctor said, I have never seen labs this bad. And I thought that was great news, because I thought, awesome, we're going to have, we have work to do. It would have been so sad if they came back perfect, because we wouldn't have known.
Nothing here for you. Nothing to do.
So yeah. And then to have them redone and then see improvements, it's crazy awesome. I mean, it's the most beautiful part of the journey is getting those little pockets of hope, like watching your markers go down. And then I would still dive into the rheumatoid factor markers. I think I would do them every 3 or 4 months. And I would watch them go down and down and down. I just couldn't believe it. I mean, I could not believe it. I was very compliant during that time of intense healing. I'd say I'm compliant now, but then, I was really, really, really battening down the hatches with all the environmental stressors, the protocols that I was told to be on. I was compliant. I never, ever cheated. And the reason I didn't, because, I don't think there's, fine, you can have a croissant, but I never, ever did anything like that, because I didn't want, if it didn't work, what I was doing, I didn't want to go back and have something to blame it on. So there was nothing. I was just ready to go and ready to put all this behind me. And that's what happened.
So what happened to the pain as a result of these positive, healthy habits you're creating?
Well, that is a great question. And so now I'm in Mexico. I'm living in construction. I'm on this new protocol. I still have my business in Vermont that I have my staff running. And I'm watching the lab work get better. I'm doing acupuncture every 2 days. I had just, it was all about my health. And my foot pain was still like just crazy bad. Like I still could not walk. And I remember all the time, the foot's not getting better. I would do a foot soak that had borax and baking soda and Epsom salt every day. My husband rubbed CBD on my foot every day, and it still wasn't getting better. So then we realized that the damage has already been done, and it's time to just find a surgeon, have the foot rebuilt, and I really felt that was going to be the last piece to the puzzle, and that has been true. So I met with Frank Lipman, a doctor in New York City, who actually wrote a nice book, How to Be Well, which I think kind of sums up everything that we're saying in a book for people to get started on. Is a good basic book. And he, Frank said, it's a crime what you went through. And it's just, I'll never forget with this British Australian, Aussie accent. It's a crime what you went through. And I'm in his office just in tears. And now I have a recommendation from him and someone else who directs me to the foot surgeon. And this is after interviewing multiple surgeons. And it's such a big surgery. And I'm going to be in a wheelchair for 6 months recovering because it's a 7 midfoot fusions. So I want to find the right surgeon. So I ended up finding a beautiful surgeon in New York, and it was very, very expensive. It was $500,000 surgery, but 40, and the insurance was going to cover some, but I had to pay 40,000 upfront cash. And so that decision took 2 months, and it's your foot. It's, it was such a big deal. Yeah. I get emotional thinking about it, but all these other surgeons I met, I felt like I was just on a conveyor belt. There was no no hardcore evidence that I really trusted them. And so when I met my surgeon in New York, it was clear he was the one, and we were going to do stem cells from my hips and all kinds of advanced things. And so that did send me into bankruptcy, which I have no regrets over at all, because now I walk completely pain-free. So that's a long answer to your question. So I have a rebuilt foot, and it healed perfectly. And all I have is now, my new foot. It doesn't function like other people's foot, but I get around really well. And then I have my wrists, which, just are funky and deformed. So I have these deformities, but I have a really low to zero pain.
What an incredible, incredible story. And I'm just hearing so much of your resilience throughout, and this decision to put yourself first, no matter what. And I love that you found Frank Lipman. Love him. And I believe he's South African, if I'm not mistaken.
Thank you.
I think he's South African, and just such a gentle, high emotional intelligence human being, on top of being really good at what he does in functional medicine. So fantastic that you found these guides along your path. I mean, what an opportunity. And I think in part, it's about being open to finding people, right? Because you made a decision, whether or not you said it out loud to the universe, but you were like, I'm meeting Seamus, the chef who cured his rheumatoid arthritis. I'm meeting him. And then this was brought to you, kind of like the law of attraction, you call this unto yourself. And then what an amazing reconnection with your 3rd grade best friend, who happens to be, oh, by the way, a functional medicine doctor. Is this just crazy? And now you have the privilege of collaborating with her, which is just, I just love it so much, Courtney. What a beautiful, beautiful journey. And now pain-free. And you don't identify as somebody who has rheumatoid arthritis or Hashimoto's. This is, completely It's just something that's not even familiar to conventional medicine, who still thinks that the only thing you can do is take medication and prepare for your life in a wheelchair. That's what I was told for 26 years.
Yeah.
So we are here, my friend, you and me, and many others who have reversed and cured. The word cure, by the way, means to restore to balance. So I don't have any hesitation in using it, because I'm not a medical doctor and I'm not worried about somebody taking my license away. But we can cure ourselves, meaning restore our systems back to balance and create these positive upward spirals that you have done. And you've shown so many people that it's possible. I just love the stand that you take for hope that this is possible. You committed to this, you showed the determination, and you just did it. And it's really something. And on the one hand, it's super special because it shows how special and determined you are. On the other hand, I want everybody to know this is possible for anyone to do this, right?
I agree. That's my sole purpose now is right alongside with you here, is to spread the message that people do not need to suffer, that they need to go out, burn these labels, follow the signs, connect with the right people, find the doctors that they believe in, interview the doctors, find their hope angels, and create an opportunity for a fresh start, set new intentions, pattern interrupt, get rid of what is not serving you. And that could be people, food, housing, you name it. And pattern interrupt, we cannot get well in the same environment that we got unwell in. And so what do you need to change? What's not serving you? Is it your job? And 100% people can do this. You and I are not just some gifted, special humans here that are the only ones. This is possible for everyone. It takes work. It takes commitment. It takes changing your thought patterns. It takes belief. What do you believe is possible? If you don't believe it, don't even just work on that before you start, testing and taking supplements or changing your diet. Work on your beliefs, because without that, the car doesn't move.
Just absolutely gorgeous, Courtney. I am so just lit up by our conversation, and I hope and know that it's going to inspire so many people. I love it. And where can people find you if they want to learn more about you?
Oh, thanks, love. So it's ccontos.com is my website. And I'm always excited to talk to anybody who wants to learn more about this. So they can send me an email, reach out, just click work with me or whatever. And we can just hop on a call and talk about the struggles and how to begin, because this is my purpose. This is your purpose. Together, we are going to change the world.
Oh, couldn't have said it better myself. I'm honored and grateful to be friends with you, to be on this journey with you. And I look forward to continuing the conversation. And I just wish you all the very, very best in whatever you do going forward.
Thank you so much. And big hugs to you and your tribe and all of the listeners out there. I'm rooting for you, and, go to nature. And that's just my last thought, is just go to nature. You'll find peace there. You find answers there. You can listen quietly to yourself and, start there.
Beautiful. Courtney, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
And that's a wrap. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, share it with your friends and family, and if you feel inspired, please leave a quick review so other people can find it too. Now, if you want to beat autoimmune and thrive, make sure you sign up for my free video training at freeautoimmunetraining.com. That's freeautoimmunetraining.com, and watch the first video right away. Take good care. Bye for now.